They say you should see a city under the sun to fall in love with it, but I think you should see it under a blanket of clouds to see its true character. This is Rotterdam, a city that wasn't just built, but was rebuilt. And today, on a moody, grey day, we are exploring the heart of its resilience. From its futuristic architecture to its hidden gems, this is how we spent one perfect imperfect day. Welcome back to Fullstack Nomads. If you're new here, I'm Tasina and I create content about my life and adventures in Europe. Leaving Amsterdam Sloterdijk on a grey morning, we boarded our train south. A quiet hour-and-a-half journey through the Dutch landscape. Sometimes travel isn't about rushing to your destination, it's about watching the world go by at 120 kilometers an hour and realizing that even the calmest journeys can lead to the most unexpected stories. Rotterdam Central isn't just a train station, it's a symbol of rebirth. After World War II, when most of Rotterdam was reduced to rubble in the 1940 bombing, the city chose not to rebuild what was lost, but to reinvent itself. From Rotterdam Central, we took a quick sprinter, just a few minutes to Blaak. The ride felt like moving through a timeline of Dutch innovation, from post-war architecture to the creative experiments of the late 20th century. And then, as we stepped out of Rotterdam Blaak, we saw them, the cube houses, designed by architect Piet Blom in the late 1970s. These tilted cubes are one of the most iconic examples of Rotterdam's architectural rebellion. Each cube is a living space turned on a 45-degree angle, built atop a hexagonal pillar, like trees in a forest of geometry. Blom once said he wanted to design a village within a city, where each house would represent a tree and together they would form an urban forest. Standing here, you can feel that philosophy. Rotterdam doesn't hide its scars, it transforms them. The city's architecture isn't afraid to be strange, bold, even uncomfortable. It's a place that reminds you that beauty doesn't always come from perfection, but from persistence. Maybe that's what resilience looks like. Not returning to what once was, but daring to imagine what could be. Just across the street from the cube houses stands one of the Rotterdam's modern icons, the Markthal. From a distance, it looks like a giant horseshoe of glass and steel, arcing gracefully over a bustling market below. As we walked closer, the scale of it hits you, futuristic yet inviting, almost like stepping into a cathedral built for food lovers. Inside, it feels like the heart of the city is alive and breathing. Dozens of food stalls line in the walkways, spices, cheeses, chocolates, and voices from every corner of the world. The air is a blend of fresh bread, coffee, and possibility. Above us, a riot of colors fills the sky, fruits, flowers, seeds, and butterflies painted across the arc. This ceiling mural called the Horn of Plenty was designed by artists Arno Koenen and Iris Roskam. Is said to be one of the largest artworks in the world, spanning over 11,000 square meters. It's not just an art, it's symbolism. The abundance of nature floating above a space dedicated to food, culture, and connection. In many ways, the market hall represents what Rotterdam stands for: resilience turned into vibrance, destruction reborn as design. For the next few minutes, we just wandered through bakeries with perfect pastries, cheese shops where the air felt heavy with history, and stalls selling spices that reminded us of home. Every step here tells a story of how the city has welcomed the world, and how the world in turn has made Rotterdam its own. Before leaving, we stopped by a little souvenir shop tucked near the corner. There's something comforting about collecting small memories from every place you visit, something tangible to remind you of moments that can't be repeated. We found a cute postcard, simple but somehow it felt like it carried the mood of the day. A grey sky, a bright city, and that quiet feeling of belonging somewhere far from home. And then hunger found us. A familiar smell of masala and garlic led us to a small Indian food stall inside the market hall. After hours of walking in the chill, this felt like a warm embrace. We ordered chicken tikka masala, butter garlic naan, and of course, rasmalai for dessert. The first bite was pure nostalgia, creamy, spicy, buttery, the kind of flavor that doesn't just feed you, but reminds you of who you are and where you've been. Travel has a way of circling back to comfort, and sometimes the most unforgettable moments aren't the grand sights, but the small ones. A shared meal, a postcard, a quiet table in a foreign city that suddenly feels like home. As we stepped back into the grey Rotterdam afternoon, full and content, the city somehow felt warmer, as if its steel and concrete had learned the language of comfort too. After our meal at the market hall, we let our feet and curiosity guide us. The rain had softened to a mist, and the city wore its October mood like a grey overcoat. We started walking toward Leenbaan, Rotterdam's famous shopping street. On the way, we peeked into a few stores, each window glowing with hints of the coming season. Halloween decorations had started to appear, pumpkins, flickering candles, and little ghosts smiling from the shelves. There's something magical about seeing how every city dresses up for October, how even in the modern glass of Rotterdam a little bit of playfulness sneaks through. Leenbaan itself felt alive, a blend of everyday energy and weekend calm. It's more than just a shopping street, it's a piece of history. When it opened in 1953, Leenbaan became Europe's first ever pedestrian shopping street, a revolutionary idea at the time. A place built for not cars but for people, for wandering, window shopping, and living at a slower pace. We spent the next few minutes ducking into the stores that caught our eye, some for their design, others just for their warmth. Rotterdam's fashion scene feels fresh and global, yet grounded. Even in a short stroll, you can sense how the city blends practically with creativity. After a while, the cold began to sink in, so we found a Starbucks, tucked between two bright storefronts, and stepped inside. The smell of roasted coffee beans wrapped around us instantly, the kind of comfort that cities, no matter how modern, never outgrow. I ordered a matcha tea latte, my little ritual whenever I travel. I sipped mine slowly, watching the rain trace lines across the glass. There's something beautiful about slowing down in the middle of motion, about finding stillness between destinations. Sometimes travel isn't about discovering new places, but rediscovering yourself in small, familiar moments, like holding a warm cup in a cold city. And with that, we were ready to continue our walk through the city that never really stops rebuilding itself in architecture, in a spirit, and maybe in us too. From Leenbaan, we made our way toward Witte de Withstraat, a name that's hard to pronounce but impossible to forget. As we wandered through the narrow roads, the city seemed to shift its rhythm. The sleek modern lines of Rotterdam gave way to something more intimate, more human. Here, every wall tells a story, quite literally. Witte de Withstraat is often called the art street of Rotterdam, and it's easy to see why. Street art spills across every corner, Murals of faces, poems, symbols, each one a quiet protest or a loud celebration. Rotterdam has always been a city of rebuilding, not just in its architecture but in its ideas. And this street feels like its creative heartbeat, where art replaces walls and imagination repairs what history once broke. Along the way, we ducked into a few antique shops, the kind of places where time seems to pause, where every object has lived another life before finding its way here. Old cameras, rusted postcards, typewriters, vinyl records, tiny fragments of forgotten stories waiting to be retold. There's something humbling about holding a piece of history in your hands, surrounded by a city that chose to rebuild its own. As we reached the end of Witte de Withstraat, the noise of the cafes faded into the quiet presence of a church, standing gracefully under the cloudy sky. It felt symbolic, the way this street of rebellion and creativity ends in silence and reverence. Maybe cities like people need both, the wildness to express and the stillness to understand. As the afternoon light began to fade, we headed toward one of the Rotterdam's most iconic landmarks, the Erasmus Bridge. From a distance, it almost looks like a harp stretched across the river, elegant, strong, and somehow serene. Locals call it the Swan because of the graceful curve of its white pylon. The Erasmus Bridge connects the north and south sides of Rotterdam. Completed in 1996 and designed by Wim van Berkel, the bridge stretches over 800 meters, a feat of engineering and imagination. But when you stand on it, none of that technicality matters. What you feel is the rhythm of the city, trams gliding past, wind brushing against your face, and the quiet hum of life moving forward. And that was our one perfect imperfect day in Rotterdam. From the futuristic skyline to quiet corners filled with art and warmth, this city showed us what resilience truly looks like. They say some cities steal your heart under the sun, but Rotterdam, it earns your respect under the clouds. Every step here is a reminder that beauty can rise from the brokenness, that the future can grow from the ashes of the past, and that sometimes all you need to fall in love with a city is one cloudy day. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Until the next adventure, stay curious and stay wondering. And please subscribe my channel, Fullstack Nomads.